Saudi Arabia's future investment initiative is set for a reboot. After boycotting the event last year, business and government officials such as U.S. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin and White House senior advisor Jared Kushner are back in Riyadh. Other politicians attending include Brazil's President Jair Bolsonaro and India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
300 leading speakers from 30 different countries are here. More than 6,000 executives and participants are attending. This is more than double the first FII. The growth has been incredible.
But some big names, including Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos, remain absent. Dozens of foreign investors dropped out of the event last year after the killing of journalist Jamal Khashoggi by Saudi agents in Istanbul. The UN believes Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman is responsible. A year earlier, the prince's image was also tarnished by what he called an anti-corruption campaign. His government acquired assets worth more than $100 billion after detaining the kingdom's most wealthy businessmen and ministers at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel for months. Investors were unnerved by the events back then, but dozens of them are now gathering in the same hotel.
It's pretty phenomenal. I mean, you have people from North America to Africa to East Asia, so it's definitely, in terms of reach, it's massive. So that's really exciting.
Many of those attending are here for one major reason: the long-planned initial public offering of state-run oil giant Saudi Aramco. Trade in its shares will begin in December, according to local media, and the Crown Prince hopes for a valuation of $2 trillion.
So far, what we know is that they're planning to list between 1% and 3% of this company on the local exchange Tadawul. And this is a very interesting approach because Saudi Arabia is looking to generate a lot of local interest in the company from both institutional and retail investors in Saudi Arabia.
The IPO is part of Mohammed bin Salman's Vision 2030 plan. It aims to diversify the kingdom's economy away from oil. And the IPO is meant to generate the estimated $100 billion needed to fund it. The kingdom hopes Davos in the desert drives demand for Aramco stock. The results of the sales push will show if Saudi Arabia's human rights problems are really fading from investors' minds. Sibel Karkus, TRT World.
And for more on this, Manouchehr Takin joins us now from London. He's an international oil and energy consultant who has worked for the OPEC Secretariat and the Centre for Global Energy Studies. Welcome to Money Talks, Manouchehr. Now, let's kick off with this so-called Davos in the Desert Forum in Saudi Arabia. It's interesting that three people who pulled out of this Riyadh summit last year, the bosses of Blackstone Group, Credit Suisse and BlackRock, are back for the summit this time around. What a difference a year makes. Now, what do you make of this? Why are leaders going back to Saudi Arabia barely a year after the murder of Jamal Khashoggi?
Well, it is obvious they were interested before, but because of those unfortunate, very sad events, they withdrew. But the potential is there, is a country with large reserves of oil, and more importantly, 10 million barrels per day, 11 million, 12 million barrels per day oil production capacity that is being used, and 2 million kept as a spare. You know, it's a very important player, is a kingpin, so to speak, in oil and internationally. So it is a very important country with reserves and production capacity and its revenues. Those who have misgivings, of course, are analysts who think of the commitments that Saudi Arabia has made and that the fall in the price of oil has reduced their budget. They have deficit annually, and their reserves of 800 billion national reserves have fallen now to about 400 billion. So they worry whether this will continue. Another negative one is how the government would continue interfering with the Saudi Aramco is a national company, Would it be independent from the government, and so on and so forth? These are what we can discuss. I leave it to you to lead me if you have any questions, please.
Yes. Now, as we know, in the lead up to the start of this forum in Riyadh, Saudi state media have also released reports that Saudi Aramco will begin trading on the local stock exchange as early as December. What do you make of that development? Obviously, the whole world has been waiting to see exactly when this IPO will take place. Do you think this is the start of that process? Should we believe those reports?
Well, that is the intention, to have the local capital, individual, private, or banks, institutions, to buy these shares. And they also hope, as you can see from the statements of the Saudi government and authorities, that Saudis, nationals, rich individuals who have funds outside Saudi Arabia, they will bring it in and purchase shares of Aramco. There are the talks of being patriotic and patriotism, that Saudis should buy this. But these are all, of course, very interesting. But the test really is in the market. Who and how much people would pay for shares of Aramco. Within the Saudi Arabia, of course, it will be a bit of control. The merchant families, some of those who were kept in that Ritz hotel for some time, and there are stories that they, for corruption allegations, etc., and they had to pay. Maybe they will be forced or encouraged, so to speak, to buy shares. And so these are the intentions. But really, to have it an IPO in the global market internationally, that will be the test, because that really can't be pushed by public relations or, say, interest of being nationalist for your own country. There it is where the actual money counts, and that is really when profits come in. And there, as I said, Saudi Aramco is a professional company, well managed as an oil company, but because of these big question marks of whether the government influences its policies and its strategy, investments, and so on, the companies may have shortcomings or feelings. The unfortunate incident of explosion in mid-September in Saudi oil installations might be a cause. And whether it is completely national oil company or a private company decision making, for example, that Saudi Arabia being a member of OPEC, the production might go up and down based on OPEC decisions. Yes. Whether all this will be affecting the revenue of the company and therefore the shareholders. They keep, Saudi Arabia keeps 2 million barrels per day, more or less, spare capacity as an insurance for the global oil market, which is very good. But those who put their money in, would they be prepared to have their investment kept idle, which is to develop these spare capacity and maintain it several hundred $1 million per they have to pay to maintain those capacities and so on. So these are the question marks. Saudi Aramco has a great deal of infrastructure commitment and in communities expenditure and so on. Really, it's difficult to foresee. We have to wait and see.
Okay, Manouchehr Takin, we'll have to leave it there, but thank you again for your analysis on the program.